Hi guys and welcome to a deck tech video for Galazeth Prismari. With us today we have Efond, who's been piloting and brewing this deck, and he's gonna help us deck construct this thing. Hi there and welcome, Efond. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. It's a little early, but I got up and glad to get this deck tech going.
So why did you start building this dragon? Izzet dragon?
When I was looking at Galazeth, I thought it was interesting. I was not going to brew it. I had no interest in it at first. I was never really... I looked at it as a Stax commander. I've never been really a Stax player, but then I had too many people tell me it was bad. And I thought they were missing out, and so I thought I'd go in, build it, and show them that it was actually a good commander that could do quite a bit.
So that's very funny that you mention it, because bad. I've heard a lot of people saying Urza is just better. So if I read this dragon, it comes into play and create a treasure. Urza is going to create a construct that is a big creature. He is going to make your artifacts able to tap for any mana of any color, while Urza can do the same, but Urza can also cast a card from the deck on the random. This dragon can't, but this dragon has color identity of red. Is Urza just better, or are they different, or what's the appeal for this dragon?
So I think what the problem is it's not about is Urza better or is Urza worse. They are two separate decks that are trying to do two separate things, but using similar mechanics. So yes, they both have the ability to tap artifacts, which with cards such as Winter Orb, Trinisphear, Static Orb, make it kind of break parity with the stacks. The thing with Urza though, it's an infinite mana outlet, where Galazeth is not. So changes your goal with the deck. Now, Galazeth has red, and Galazeth can play different stacks than Urza. Urza cannot play Cursed Totem. Cursed Totem shuts down Urza. Galazeth can. Well, on the other side, Urza can get past Null Rod and Collector Roof, and Galazeth cannot. Now, having red gives you access to more combos and more cards, and therefore you have more of a storm feel to Galazeth, where with Urza, you're trying to stack the board out till you can find your win.
I see. So what are your combos for this deck, by the way?
So, Underworld Breach, Dualcaster Mage, and Heat Shimmer Twin Flame, or then you're running Niv Mizzet, which I like to say is a combo all on one card. You can just storm off with Niv Mizzet and win that way. You'll eventually be able to put together one of your other combos that way.
So how does Niv Mizzet really... It's Niv Mizzet? I thought this was just a card drawing engine in your deck.
So the thing with Niv Mizzet is every time you cast a spell, you're drawing a card, right?
Yeah.
Well, and dealing a damage. So what's happening once you get Niv Mizzet out is a lot of times you'll get Niv Mizzet out, you'll play through that'll get you in a whole bunch of card draw. You'll find Burgi, you'll toss down Burgi. All of a sudden you toss it down as a horn. You're just starting to toss cards to Burgi, playing your cheap instant sorceries. You're able to then get through to the point where you're able to just find your combo that way. It just turns into a huge storm. And then with Stormkiln Artist, you're just creating treasures the whole entire time you're doing this. And then I've done things where I've cast Phantasmal Image on Stormkiln Artist.
Yeah.
And so then you're doubling up your treasures. And then you have Magda, which finds your Niv Mizzet.
Oh yeah, yeah. Magda can find this. And I think collecting the treasures isn't that hard for your deck, right?
Yeah, no, that's not hard at all. You also have dockside stuff you can do in this deck. A previous game I just recently played, I dropped a dockside down, I heat shimmered the dockside, I created so many treasures that I was just able to hardcast Niv. I mean, dockside's a huge thing. So you're getting treasures off dockside, you're getting treasures off just, attacking with your dwarf, and then your commander. I've actually just sat there and bounced my commander in my hand, replayed it till I got to 5 treasures to get Niv out.
And the cool thing is that you actually get to keep those treasures. I mean, Dockside doesn't create treasures, he creates moxes for you, kinda.
I look at them as mox diamonds, but they're only for instants and sorceries.
But your pathway in getting that big dragon or your card draw in general is eventually leading into this combo or the typical brain freeze combo.
Exactly. the other thing you run here is you are running your Hull Breacher and your Wheels, and so you can get treasures that way.
And then you play cards like even Blood Moon and Curse Totem, because Curse Totem doesn't affect this commander.
Exactly, and Curse Totem not only doesn't affect this commander, Curse Totem's an artifact that's going to pay for your instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
But I do not play Back to Basics.
Oh.
Back to Basics, in my opinion, ends up being a little bit more symmetrical. And I found while making cuts that I didn't need every single Blood Moon effect and every single Back to Basics type effect. I only needed like one or two, and I ended up cutting down to just Blood Moon. It was good enough. The other thing I've noticed is a lot of times people get so frustrated with the Stax effects that instead of actually dealing with your commander themselves and dealing with the issues that your commander is creating, they'll deal with your Stax effect. They're more worried about that.
So how should you be piloting this deck? What should be your kind of aim when you're going into your game with this dragon?
I often look at decks in phases. Ramp phase, which in cEDH usually takes place very quickly. You're trying to do that turn one. So your first thing should be, hey, I need to get Galazeth out. Galazeth really is the heart of the deck. It gets you going, and just the fact that it costs 4 mana, it actually costs 3 mana because you're going to be making that treasure on ETB. So looking at it that way, like your hand should be able to get Galazeth out hopefully turn 1 or 2. You're going for all your artifact ramp, which is going to serve you later on. And then specifically naming Jeweled Lotus in this package. Jeweled Lotus, if you get it later game, it's still useful. It still taps for mana. So that's a big plus side of that card. And then the next step after you get Galazeth out is if you don't have just the win in hand and you're going for the win, because you're going to go for the win anytime you can. You're going to be trying to get some Stax pieces out. So things that make your opponents a little uncomfortable, hold them back, and kind of try to just build up advantage during this point. Just sitting there and being able to build up, Stormkiln Artist and get him out there. Get a Dockside set in your hand and a bounce spell. Get that thing going. And then your next phase is either you're going to have your combo at this point because you've taken a couple turns of staxing people out, or you're going into your storm phase. And your storm phase, in my opinion, is I got Niv out, now we're going to try to storm off. Burgi is interesting because you have both sides of Burgi. And so knowing when it's necessary to make mana and knowing when it's necessary to play her backside, the discard to draw, is a very important aspect in this deck. Because you need to be able to make that decision on, am I going to be low on cards here or am I going to be low on mana? What am I trying to do? Almost every game I have won, I have had Burgi on Horn or I have had Niv out. And when I have Niv out, I often end up with Burgi on her front side at that point, because then I'm drawing enough cards that I don't have to worry.
Can I just say that I think if you have the Horn and you Niv, I think you're going to go through your deck quite well from that point, right?
Yes, so Horn plus Niv is usually really good. A lot of times, though, when you have gotten Niv out, you've put a lot of mana into getting Niv out because you're going to try to get Niv out the first moment you can. Often, you're just not going to be able to get the Horn and Niv out and have enough mana to keep going, because that's a lot of mana, or a lot of treasures that you had to build up, which probably took some mana and took some effort. So if you can get in that position, 100% go for it. But if you can see a line where you just play Burgi and use her for mana, that's not the worst thing in the world. That's still going to produce enough mana. You're probably going to still be able to get enough draw on Niv and threaten your combo and get to the win usually. Because to be honest, every time I've played with Niv out, I'm drawing off my own stuff. I'm knocking out anything that's bothering me, and then usually my opponents can't keep up because every time they try to stop me, they're drawing me more cards.
So when you're playing this deck, you can go in a little bit of a different direction. You can either stomp more on the stacks, or you can try to go more on your storm, depending on the situation.
Often it's not an either or, it's both. You're staxing and storming, and you're controlling the board. You have a lot of counter spells in this deck. You have a lot of ability to sit there and, make moves when it matters. And because of that, you can often put yourself in just this really, really weird place in the meta where you're not heavy stacks, but you are playing stacks. And you're not a control deck in itself, but you're playing a heavy amount of control. You're sitting kind of in the middle of a whole bunch of different archetypes.
So how does this deck currently perform in the current meta, do you think?
In the current meta, what I've noticed is it's one of those decks that it's going to either do extremely well, or it's gonna lose if it loses to a very turbo style deck. A lot of times you'll have the control pieces, and a lot of times it's about your playability. A lot of people like to talk about tier lists and talk about, is it tier 1, is it tier 2, where does it fit here? But a lot of the time it depends on your playstyle. In this case, I think if you are someone who is a control player, a Stax player, this isn't a bad deck to pick up. But if you're someone who is just all about focused on the win and just protect only my win and get there as fast as I can, this might not be the deck for you. This wouldn't be your playstyle. It's not going to you're not trying to rush to the win in this deck. You're trying to get there when you get there.
What do you think of Torpor Orb for this deck? You do have Gildrake and you do have Dockside, so you do care a little bit about it, but you don't play Fasa, and I have a feeling that more of your opponents are more on the ETB effect. I mean, losing your ETB from your commander isn't that big of a deal in my speculation, and it's an artifact that you can Stax a little bit with. And I actually think Torpor Orb is a kind of good Stax piece in the current situation.
So I can agree with you that Torpor Orb is very good. I like it as a card. I've played it in many decks. It's kind of the same thing. When I was making cuts, I looked at this deck and went, is it going to Stax me at all? And if the answer was yes, then I went, my other Stax pieces are good enough. I would be probably cutting another Stax piece for this, because to me, I like to talk about blends a lot of time. You want a certain percentage Stax, a certain percentage control, a certain percentage you winning and getting you to that. And so in my mind, I have a really good blend. I like my blend of Stax, control, and getting to my win. And Torpor Orb is just more stacked, and it would be the worst of what I think I have stacks wise. So I think it just narrowly doesn't make the cut in my mind.
This is a very interesting combo that you don't often see that much. Like, it's a 2-card combo. It's a little bit expensive. I mean, you're either paying 5 mana or 6 mana, but it's a mono red 2-card combo. Clean and simple.
One of the things about this combo that's really nice is the fact that you can use these cards to benefit you, and you can actually, the sorcery kind of protects this combo kind of protects itself often. Mm-hmm. I've had situations where I've had a Dockside on board, and a lot of times you're going to use this copy of Dockside. You're going to want to get all those treasures. And the nice thing is people are going to want to counter that. People are going to go, hey, this guy's going to make 42 treasures. I don't want to see that because he's probably just going to win. And so sometimes what I've done is I've actually waited for the counter that I know someone tutored up. They think I'm forcing it out of their hand, and then I drop in the Dullcaster Mage after I get that counter out of their hand. So you can play to the table a lot of time. You can do things that the table doesn't expect you to do with that combo. But the other aspect of it is the Twin Flame and Heat Shimmer have a lot of other targets on your storm turn. If you're storming off and you're going for more Underworld Breach combo, then what you do is you use Heat Shimmer to copy your Storm Kiln. You use Heat Shimmer to copy your Docksides. Same with Twin Flame. And I've had the situation where I've used Dullcaster Mage to do crazy things like that.
Something I've learned so far is that your deck is really good at creating artifacts. So what do you think about Ghirapur's Aether Grid? It's a red enchantment, tap 2 artifact. Your deck feels like it has a lot of those to deal 1 damage to target creature or player.
So I can see the thought behind this card.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I find that while this would be useful as removal, there's really only one spot that you want to remove, and I guess this comes into the talk about weaknesses of the deck. So what you're dealing with in this deck that really hurts is it's going to be null rot effects are the number one things you don't want to see in this deck. This doesn't help you really with that effect, except for the fact to maybe hit a collect roof.
But it's so cute. Come on. You can't kill that.
You gotta get rid of that as fast as possible. That is not what you want to see with this deck. We play a lot of bounce just for these effects. We want to make sure that these effects aren't sticking around, and when they come back down, we're going to counter them because we're going to be ready for them. Just being aware that when you're storming off, if you draw this, you're not going to be happy. You're going to look at it and go, okay, this is dead.
Yeah.
A really, really high ceiling, which I could see getting you back in the game, but it's the floor that I can't see it being good in enough situation.
Basically, this is not an artifact, this is not an instant sorcery, because your dragon only casts instant sorcery, so it's a bit of a wrong fitting.
Exactly. I mean, I could see a deck where this would be very, very good, where you go into some artifact combo.
So you mentioned the deck's weakness, but what is the deck's strengths? Does it have any?
Yeah, I think it has the strength that, it can play Stax that is not symmetrical. It can play control and have access to not just playing a 6-drop commander that wins you the game, but it plays a 4-drop that actually goes ahead, gets you a lot of value as you're playing. And then it can also sit there and play Storm. Now, a strength that some people may not think about quite often is the fact that this deck is underestimated. It's not a tier 1 database deck. So the fact that it's not a tier 1 database deck means that it's not on people's radar. People are looking at this deck going, they're playing Bad Urza. And I like to start games off and saying, I'm going to play Bad Urza. Because people often just toss me the game because they're worried about everybody else.
Yeah. You're getting really left behind the moment people are like saying you're bad, you're gonna lose. You can simply do whatever you want after that.
Exactly. You just sit there and you wait it out. You're not in a hurry to get to the win. Leave that to the turbo people.
You leave that to the... I like that. Leave that to the turbo people. But I have a feeling we're definitely making the turbo people's lives miserable with a trinisphear and wind orb still. Maybe not wind orb, but trinisphear is really annoying for them.
Oh yeah, it's funny because I've dropped trinispheres and had the turbo players go, I'm out of the game. They don't know what to do.
Now, if you want to take a look at Efond's deck card by card, there's a link in the description below the video. But if people want to reach out to you and ask questions, is there a good way where you can be found?
Yes, so I'm currently the first acolyte of the Tryhards. The Tryhards is a group that is trying to, help build a really cool Discord server with a really good culture to it. We're putting together a program for cEDH, playing judges to get together and be able to talk about, new cards that come out and be able to help with judge calls for cEDH. And if you want, there's going to be a link down at the bottom in the description, and you guys can just go down there and always message me on Discord. I'm always available to anyone who wants to talk.
And that's it for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new about how to brew izzet big dragon, or the izzet medium dragon, maybe it should be framed.
Yep, thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.